Oh, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for attending this market surveillance webinar on a Friday afternoon when we should be all off sunning ourselves. Today I'm Mairéad Phelan, and I'm from the National Market Surveillance Office. I'm going to talk to you today on the Market Surveillance Campaign 2023. And this campaign is really based on aggregates. And it's aggregates for construction. There's 31 market surveillance authorities in Ireland and 3 competent authorities, and I'll go through that as we progress through this. I'm going to concentrate on the market surveillance as opposed to building control. So this is a market surveillance lecture as opposed to building regulations. And the first thing I'm going to do is you have a look at the legislative provisions for market surveillance in Ireland. And you might see all during along this lecture, I have all the links. The presentation will be available in video and in PDF, so you can check the links, go through that and follow it afterwards. So there's as much information in this as you will need for market surveillance. The first thing that we need to look at, in 2013, the European Union Construction Products Regulations came into being in Ireland, and that was under SI 225 of 2013. And what that actually did was gave effect in Irish legislation to Regulation 305 of 2011, and that's the European Union Construction Products Regulations. And it also gave effect in Ireland, Chapter 3 of the European Union Market Surveillance Regulations. So it gave effect in Ireland of the 2 regulations one relating to market surveillance of products and the other relating to market surveillance, relating to construction products. It provided for 31 local authorities and 2 competent national authorities, and those were TII and GSI. What it said was that now it's mandatory for all construction products which are placed on the market in this country to actually have with them be CE marked. They must have a declaration of performance and be accompanied by safety information in use. For certain products, then they needed a factory production control certificate from a notified body and attestation of verification constancy of performance. Then what you had then was if you look at there, I put up links to BRAB. That's the department's website, where it's very good information. Note on construction products regulations, how to CE mark. In 2020, then, what we had was the withdrawal of the United Kingdom from the European Union. And that then initiated a lot of legislation on behalf of all the European 27 countries in Europe to provide for the withdrawal of the United Kingdom to be a 3rd country, the same as China, America, and places like that. And what that did then was it allowed the state to give regulation for Dublin City Council to be the National Market Surveillance Office under SI 682 of 2020. Around the same time then, you had the European Union, and they amended the regulations to provide for regulations to what is called 1020 of 2019. And what this actually did was it strengthened the European Union Construction Products Regulations. It repealed the Chapter 3 of the Market Surveillance Regulations, and it then the government had to change and amend 225 of 2013 again and give effect for that in this country under SI 217 of 2023. And what that also did then was made the Dublin City Council's national Market Surveillance Authority, and National Competent Authority. So then what you had was 31 building control authorities, 3 national competent authorities, and then a national market surveillance office. I've just put the links there for good practice for market surveillance in Ireland, the guidelines for market surveillance, risk assessment, market surveillance of construction products, the National Building Control Office's website, the Product Safety Directive, and all the other delegated legislation. So the relevant delegated legislation. There's quite a lot of delegated legislation. So really what you're looking at is the European Union Construction Products Regulations. And the purpose of the Construction Products Regulation is to break down technical barriers to trade and ensure the free movement of construction products across Europe. That is the purpose. The single market, free movement of goods. The market surveillance then means activities carried out and measures taken by a market surveillance authority to ensure that construction products comply with the requirements set out in the Construction Products Regulations and do not endanger health, safety, and or any other aspect of public interest protection. So it's mainly free movement of goods is what you're looking at. So in Ireland then you have the market surveillance, the European Union Construction Products legislation, and that is then you have the combination of SI 225 of 2013, SI 217 of 2023, and that gives effect to the European Union Market Surveillance Regulation and the European Union Construction Products Regulations. They prescribe 31 building control authorities as market surveillance authorities and prescribes GSI, TII, and the National Market Surveillance Office as competent national authorities. They also provide for powers for authorised officers, corrective actions to be taken, offences and defences and penalties. And as I said, 682 prescribes National Building Control Office as a market surveillance authority. So this is not a simple piece of legislation. It's quite complex because you have the national situation and then you have the European situation, and the European situation, the European 27 single market. So all of those regulations must be read in tandem with the European Union Construction Products Regulation, the Market Surveillance Regulations, the Irish piece, and the national provisions. So it's not simple, and it was meant for a unified free movement of construction products across Europe. Now, who are the stakeholders that are provided for under this the Construction Products Regulations? You have the number one is economic operator, and that's a natural or legal person who's either a manufacturer, and a manufacturer is a person who manufactures a product or has the product designed and manufactured under their trademark. An authorised representative then is another form of economic operator, and that is a person with a written mandate from the manufacturer to act on their behalf. You have an importer, and an importer is a person who's a natural or legal person established within the European Union who places a product from a third country on the Union market. So it's a person who places a product on the market, any European Union country, from a third country, for example, China, the UK. So it's not somebody that's bringing a product from France to Ireland. So that's an importer is a person who places a product from a third country onto the market. Then you have a distributor. Distributor basically is what it says it is. It supplies, it distributes the product. And the other thing that we need to look at is the fulfillment service provider. And the fulfillment service provider carries out at least two of the following tasks. It's either warehousing and packaging, or warehousing and addressing, or addressing and packaging. So those are the economic operators: manufacturer, authorized representative, importer, distributor, fulfillment service provider, and any other legal person that's specified in the construction products regulations. The next stakeholder you have is the end user. And the end user is very important because they are the person that either purchases it or is given the product, or is the builder that incorporates the product into a construction works or a building. So they can be owners, designers, builders, and any other person that incorporates the product into a works or a building. So making available then on the market means any supply of construction product for distribution, consumption, or use on the union market in the course of a commercial activity, whether in return for payment or free of charge. So even if you get that product free, it still must comply with the requirements of the European Union Construction Products Regulations. It doesn't matter whether you've paid money or not paid money for it. So the supply chain basically then is the suppliers and subcontractors which feed into the manufacturer who makes the product. The manufacturer is an authorized representative. Then you have importers who import the products in from third countries. You have the distributors and the fulfillment service providers who are distributing, warehousing, packaging, addressing the products. They are not the postal service or any of those parcel delivery services. Then the product then ends up with the end user, and the end user is really the purchaser, the owner, the designer, or whoever puts that product then into a building. Verifying compliance, the importer must check that the manufacturers verify the compliance, the distributor check the importer has the verification of compliance, and then if you're going to be using that product, you must check that it fulfills the requirements that you need it for. So market surveillance authorities then and notified bodies carry out unannounced and announced inspections for the purpose of checking compliance with the construction products regulations. Now, economic operators, they have responsibilities and they're quite onerous. And as I said, the economic operator can be a manufacturer, an authorized representative, an importer, distributor, fulfillment service provider. And a person shall not make a construction product available on the market other than where there is an economic operator established in the European Union, other than a distributor. So they must be established in the Union, in one of the 27 countries. And that's why I say when you looked at the notified bodies and a lot of companies, when the UK removed itself from the Union, a lot of companies set up bases in places like Ireland and other countries, so they were still within the Union. The economic operator shall, it doesn't say may, it shall perform the following tasks. Verify that declaration of performance and technical documentation have been drawn up in respect to construction products concerned. Keep the declaration of performance at the disposal of the market surveillance authorities for the period required by the CPR, and that's usually about 10 years. You can put your questions into the questions and answers as we go along, and we'll answer the questions if we have time when we finish. The other task then for the economic operator is they must comply with a reasoned request from a market surveillance authority, for documentation, information that's necessary to demonstrate conformity of the construction product, and that documentation must be in a language which is easily understood by that authority. So if a manufacturer or an economic operator is placing a product on the market in Ireland, the language that's easily understood by the market surveillance authorities in Ireland is English, not French, not German or anything else. The economic operator, when having reason to believe that a construction product in question presents a risk, they must inform. So if they're manufacturing a product and they have it placed on the market, and then somebody tells them that it may present a risk, they must inform the market surveillance authority of that. And then they must cooperate with the market surveillance authority, following any reasoned request to ensure that immediate mitigation measures are taken to ensure that product is brought back into compliance. And that can possibly take the recall. It can be to notify users or carry out certain mitigation measures to the product. So the market surveillance authority must give reasoned request to the economic operator, and the economic operator must comply, and it's the economic operator's responsibility to comply with the construction products regulations. What you also need to know is that the name, the registered trade name, or registered trademark and contact details, including the postal address of the economic operator, must be included either on the product that's placed on the market or on the packaging accompanying that product. You must have that. So all products must be marked with the name, address of the manufacturer. Now, the construction products regulations, that's the regulation, the main European regulation 305 of 2011, provides for 35 product areas. And that's quite a lot. And in those product areas, there's probably over 400 different, I think 450 different standards and different types of products. The main products that we're looking at there are the membranes, the precast structural elements, chimneys, the structural timbers, masonry, roof coverings, road construction products, construction adhesives, products relating to concrete, mortar and grout, glass and fixings and building kits at the moment are quite high. The modular construction, you know, some of those could come under pieces of that, and fire stopping and fire sealing. And the main product that the market surveillance campaign is looking at is aggregates, and that's area code 24. The red arrow should be just up a little bit higher there. The European Union support, really what we're talking about is a single market, and that's what we're looking at in the single market. And it's the Commission that brought in the European Union construction, the products regulations for the free movement of traffic, or of traffic, products, all of that. So the Commission then supports cooperation between all the countries, and the cooperation forms part of the European Union Product Compliance Network, of which Ireland and the Market Surveillance Authorities are members of. The administration and cooperative groups, the National Building Control Office representatives represent Ireland on the administration and cooperative groups for a group for construction products, and we attend meetings twice a year in Europe on that, and joint arrangements. You have Article 9, which different market surveillance authorities can have joint agreements between them to carry out market surveillance in the EU. The provision of the ICSMS, that's the European platform where all of the inspections that are carried out by market surveillance authorities are placed on it so that anybody can see them. Then you've got the European Union Safety Gate, where a product may present a risk and a rapid alert is sent to all of the member states on that product. The biggest products that we find that may present smallish risks, maybe not huge risks, would be that we've had recently would be relating to probably sometimes fire alarms that have been miscoded and put on the European market and things like that. The regulations then provide for the Market Surveillance Authority, and every single building control authority is prescribed as a market surveillance authority. Authorised officers then are prescribed under the regulations. Notifying authorities are also prescribed under the legislation, and the notified body. So you have notifying authorities like the department, and then the notified bodies in Ireland would be the NSAI and BRE, and there's Omni, there's 9 or 10 of them. Non-compliance means any failure to comply with the requirement of the construction products regulations, the market surveillance regulations, or of the EU Construction Products Amendment regulations. So any of those, as I showed you on the first slide, that's a non-compliance. Corrective action then means any action taken by an economic operator to bring any non-compliance to an end where required by a market surveillance authority or on the economic operator's own initiative. So they can be market surveillance authority may request it, or the economic operator on their own initiative may take corrective action, but they must tell the market surveillance authority they're actually doing that. So what we have, as I said, is 31 local authorities who are building control authorities who are designated for market surveillance authorities for the 35 product areas. You have the National Market Surveillance Office, which is also a designated market surveillance authority for the 35 product areas. And then you have the 3 competent authorities: the Geological Survey of Ireland, which is designated for area code 24, which is aggregates because they are the competent people in that. National Roads Authority are designated for area code 12, which is road products, fixtures and area code 24, which is the aggregates, and then the road making materials 23. The works and all the guidelines for market surveillance authorities provide the roles and duties and responsibilities of the market surveillance authorities in Ireland and what they need to do. And they're being updated at the moment. Then you have the good practice for market surveillance, and that's a document that was written by the ADCOs in Europe for good practice for market surveillance across the Union. And then the market surveillance authorities, with the support of the National Market Surveillance Office, then implement the National Market Surveillance for Construction Products strategy. And that's really the way it works. As I said, the summary then is really the construction products regulations remove barriers to trade. That's what it was for. And conditions apply when placing a product on the market in the Union, creates obligations on economic operators, provides for the National Market Surveillance Strategy, provides for the European Union cooperation with ADCOs and the European Union Product Compliance Network, provides for the platform, the European platform where all inspections and market surveillance activities are recorded. That's called the ICSMS, provides for the RAPEX, the Rapid Alert System across Europe if there's any issues with a product, and then controls the entering of the EU on the EU market, and that's liaison with customs. I have put here a list of links which everybody that is involved in market surveillance and market surveillance authorities should be aware of. The thing to remember here is that doesn't regulate the use of a construction product when it is incorporated into construction works. It's for removing barriers, free movement of goods. When it's incorporated into a construction work, then it's covered by the building regulations. And that's where I'm just going to give you a brief outline of the difference between market surveillance and building control. Market surveillance means placing a construction product on the market, and that declares the performance of the product's essential characteristics. Building control is using or placing of that construction products in works or a building, and they need to look at the declared performance and is it suitable for that end use, which is the works or building it's going to go into. So two different pieces of legislation, two different uses. One is placing it on the market and the other is using it. Now, if you're placing it on the market, it's products, construction products, which have either a harmonized European standard or are the subject of a European assessment document. Then you have attestation, assessment and verification on constancy of performance. When you place it on the market, then you must have a DOP CE marking, safety information in use, and that's really your market surveillance. The legislation is the construction products regulations, and the responsibility for compliance is with the economic operators, and I've explained what the economic operators are: the manufacturer, the importer, the distributor, and the enforcement then is with the 31 building control and market surveillance authorities and the National Market Surveillance Office. Then when this product then is in use, the user must take into consideration any national provisions for the use of that product in this country. And they come in the form in this country of standard recommendations or technical guidance documents. And when they're taking into consideration the national provisions, they must look at what's written on the DOP and the CE marking, and what's the limitations of that for use in the works or the building that they're going to put it into. You must check then to see, will that product in the building or works comply with the building regulations? Is it fit for purpose? That product, is it fit for purpose? Is it constructed in a workmanlike manner? Make sure it's constructed in a workmanlike manner. Is there proper installation? And that's the building control. Building control then is regulated by the Building Control Act 1990-2014 and Building Regulations 97 to 2022, Responsibility for compliance there rests with the owners, the builders, the specifiers, the designers, and the certifiers. And enforcement is the 31 building control authorities, inter-administrative area. So the two different pieces of legislation. One is for placing on the market, and the other is using in a building or works. Now, we looked at the standard recommendations for use of the products in the individual countries. I'm just going to give an example of a product. The aggregates for concrete are aggregates which are used in concrete blocks, they're used in ready-mix concrete, they're used in lintels. And it comes under then the European standard 12620. To look at the declared and essential characteristics that are required for the different uses, then you need to go to the annex, and the annex then gives you the essential characteristics for that product. And characteristics such as durability, water absorption, and things like that, you need to go and read those and read the Annex ZA in these standards. Now, if you're going to use that in Ireland, right, you need to check, is there a national provisions for the use of 12620? And the answer is yes, and it's called SR16. And SR16 gives guidance on the use of the EN standard aggregates for concrete in Ireland. And it provides for extra provisions for the use of that product in Ireland. And for example, here we see that the provisions there relate to total sulfur content and relate to petrographic assessment and a geologist to look at have knowledge of the raw materials. So what you need to look at here and be very cognizant of is the European standard, the recommendations, the national guidance for using that product in the individual countries, and then the purchaser that's going to use that, the purchaser should inform the producer, the manufacturer, at the time of the order of any special requirements associated with a particular end use. So you're going into your manufacturer, your provider, and saying, I want to buy aggregates for concrete, and I am going to use them in concrete blocks to produce to EN 771, or I'm going to produce them. So you need to actually specify what your end use is. So that's quite important. So the product areas there, we're going to look at the aggregates, that's area code 24. Now under area code 24, these are all the standards that are provided for here, and you'll see them there. You have aggregates for concrete, bituminous mixes, lightweight aggregates part 1, lightweight aggregates part 2, aggregates for mortar, aggregates for unbound and hydraulically bound materials for use in civil engineering, and then the aggregates, the armor stone. So we're just going to look at these, and what we have for the market surveillance campaign is we've looked at the aggregates for concrete, and aggregates for concrete, as I said, you know, they're concrete blocks, lintels, the ready mix. Aggregates then for bituminous products. The bituminous products are those used in roads. Then you have aggregates for mortar, that's EN 13139. Aggregates for mortar, very important part of your construction works, because these are the aggregates that you're using in the internal and external render, the bonding of your blocks and such, so that they need to be absolutely compliant with that. And then you have 13242, and these are mainly, if you're using them in construction, the aggregates for your under your floors, under your roads. So it's quite important that you need to check the essential characteristics declaration, performances, and CE marking, that what you're buying are suitable for the use in where you're going to use them. So construction products, so what we're looking at in area code 24 really is construction products generated from quarries and pits in Ireland. And that's our market surveillance strategy campaign 2023, the products. So if you look at that, we have that on our website, and our market surveillance planned activities include checking for area code 24. So that's our planned activities. That's aggregates. So we're looking at aggregates in concrete, aggregates for bituminous mixes, and aggregates for mortar, and aggregates for unbound and hydraulically bound and unbound materials. Now, what I have here is these aggregate products. The concrete, you have a standard recommendation. A national provision is called SR16. The national provision for using aggregates for bituminous mixes is SR17. The national provision for using aggregates for mortar is SR18. And the natural provisions for using aggregates for unbound and hydraulically bound materials is SR21. So all of these aggregates have a national provision for their use. So it's not enough to just get this EN standard, you must get the national provisions as well. Now, the campaign this year, phase 1 is raising awareness. Phase 2 is planning visits to premises. The phase 3 then is your conclusion and the reporting. What we have done and what we have circulated to the economic operators and to market surveillance authorities, the information note. And this is the information note. And again, there's a copy of that on our website, and I have links to it in this presentation. So it gives an overview of the Market Surveillance Campaign 2023, what we do, the powers of inspection, what's required, what information that we're looking for when we go out to site, and I'll have another slide on that, the time for compliance, the corrective actions that may need to be taken, the penalties, further information where economic operators or they can look for further information. The target group, who's the target group for this market surveillance campaign? The target group is the economic operators. They're the manufacturers, the authorized representatives, the importers, the distributors, the hardware stores, the Building Materials Federation, the RAI, Engineers Ireland, SCSI, Associated Consulting Engineers, the Construction Industry Federation, Construction Industry Council. These are all the target groups and the end user. So everybody should understand the product they're manufacturing, the compliances that are required, and then the end user, the users should understand what they're going to use this product for. So phase 1 is raising awareness. And that's raising awareness between the, for economic operators as well as the market surveillance authorities. And the raising awareness for the economic operators, we've just looked at the information note that's circulated to all the economic operators. The market surveillance authorities then must look at the guidelines for market surveillance, which sets out the roles and duties and responsibility of the market surveillance authorities. So the draft guidelines I've called them draft because we're updating them to incorporate SI 217 or 2023 into them. It has quite an extensive list of checklists that you just check your products against. So it's quite good on that. How to do pre-visit, identify the economic operators, familiarize yourself with responsibilities and collaboration. So it gives all of that, and the sharing experiences with the regional building control and market surveillance groups. The good practice for market surveillance, as I said, is what we use in carrying out our inspections. And step 1 is you register the information on the European platform. Step 2 is you determine the relevant economic operators, request the documents, then you assess for compliance with formal requirements. And formal requirements assessment means checking that all the documents comply with the requirements as set out in the European Union Construction Products Regulations. And there's a complete checklist which I'll go through on that. And that's the formal, that's the paperwork compliance. Then assessment of compliance with technical requirements. That's when you take a sample, you check the declaration performance, and you get it tested to see does it comply with the declared performances as set out on the declaration of performance. Risk assessment then, if you find that there's a non-compliance, you risk assess it. Is it a non-compliance with the formal requirements? Is it just a small mistake on the paperwork that wouldn't be a huge risk? Or do the declared performances when they come back from the accredited laboratories comply with what is written as the declared performance on the declaration performance. So that's your risk assessment. The step 7 then would be inform the economic operators if there's issue found or no issues found. And then step 8 then would be completing that information on the European Union recording platform. So your visits to economic operators, the market surveillance authorised officers have wide-ranging powers to carry out market surveillance. They can enter into any buildings, vehicles for examination, evaluation, or testing or inspections of construction products. They can request technical information to ascertain if construction products are compliant with requirements of a CPR. They can take copies, they can take records, they can take extracts from file, they can carry out announced or unannounced, they can carry out overt or covert inspections. They can take samples of construction product for testing. They can issue a notice to require corrective action to be taken by the economic operator. And that's the actions requiring an economic operator to bring the construction products into compliance within a specified period. And if the economic operator fails to take corrective action, then what the Market Surveillance Authority may do is request the Minister to prohibit, restrict, withdraw, or recall that product. So that's getting quite serious when it goes as far as there. The authorised officer shall take reasonable measures to guarantee the confidentiality of technical documentation and such other information as may be supplied to him or her. Some of this documentation is not subject to freedom of information. There's commercial sensitivity to it, and it's for the purposes of the Market Surveillance Authority satisfying themselves as to the compliance of relating to the construction product. Thing to remember is the responsibility for demonstrating a construction product's compliance with the requirements of the regulations rests with the manufacturer of the product. It's not the responsibility of the Market Surveillance Authority to certify compliance. Now, when the Market Surveillance Authority goes out to an economic operator, what is the Market Surveillance Authority looking for? They're looking for, and this is set out in the information note that I showed you earlier, they're looking for a copy and probably would take a photograph of the CE marking. The valid declaration of performance, yes, no. Is it importer, manufacturer, distributor? Yes, no. The technical documentation to support that product complies, say, with the requirements of these aggregates for concrete, aggregates for mortar, and aggregates for underfloor fill. They may look for the test reports and details in respect of the type testing that's carried out on the product by the manufacturer, details of the notified factory production control certification body, the instructions and safety information in use, and the means, this is the important piece, the means by which the products within the scope of these EN standards are made available on the market, and how the economic operator, the manufacturer, can trace them if there is an issue. Now, you take a copy of the CE marking, you have a look at it, and these are the checks. And these checks are set out in the guidelines for market surveillance. You know, for example, is the CE mark, is it correct? Yeah, it looks correct there. False CE marking would be something like that. Does the CE marking contain the last 2 digits of the year of the CE mark was first affixed? And you're looking at it there. The trade name of the registered address of the manufacturer, the unique reference number. Unique reference number is on it. These, the level or class of performance declared, the performances, the reference to the date and the number of the harmonized technical specification, and that's there on it, ISC 12620, the intended use, the identification number of the notified body. And those are the checks that you do. Then you look at your DOP and you do the same thing. And there's the checklist for the DOP, the reference number, the type, the batch, the serial number, the intended use, the name of the registered trademark, name and address, identification number of the notified bodies, the reference to the date and number, the system or systems of assessment and verification and constancy of performance, declared performances, yes. Is the DOP signed on behalf of the manufacturer? The signed. And then some of the DOPs can be uploaded onto a website link, and it's preferable if they are. that there is the DOP in relation to a concrete block, and you see there in relation to durability against freeze-thaw. There's no performance declared there on that one. Now, you need to ask yourself, do I need performance declared on that for what I'm going to use it for? So the no performance declared option may not be used where the characteristic is subject to a threshold level. So you need to check that. Then there's a very good guide there, and I have the link there to a guide for the use of aggregate concrete blocks and marketing in Ireland. So anybody using blocks in a building or works should actually read that. Other checklists you can do, factory production control checklists, and again, those checklists are in the annex. Has the manufacturer documented factory control procedure? Yes, no. What is the certificate conformity system? Which system is it? Does the certificate of conformity of factory production control train the name and address of the factory production control certification body? And you have it there. So all of those checklists, you need to go down and check yes, no for each one, and any particular conditions applicable to the use of the product, and that's if necessary. So what does it say the use of the product is for? Is there any specific conditions set out in the standard recommendations for the use of that product? The assessment and verification constancy of performance, again, the checklist is there in the annex. Name and address of notified body, certificate number, name and address of the manufacturer, you have the manufacturer there, description, type, designated product, and conditions for validity of the certificate, name and address, position held of the person. So you have those on that. So all of the checklists are in the guidelines for market surveillance. The other important thing that is sometimes forgotten, and that's the safety information in use. And what the regulations say in Article 11, the obligations of manufacturers, when making a construction product available on the market, manufacturers shall ensure that the product is accompanied by instructions and safety information in a language determined by the member state concerned, which can be easily understood in a language understood by the member states. And that's just an example for safety information for a block. And you see there, it has the physical and chemical properties, first aid measures, disposal considerations, transport information. And really what we're saying is you should get your CE marking, your DOP, your safety information in use, and your docket for every construction product you purchase. In every single EN standard, there's marking and labeling conditions prescribed, and say this is for 12620, that's aggregates for concrete. And you also have to look at SR16Cs or anything else there. You need your docket, delivery docket shall contain at least the following information: the designation, the date of dispatch, the serial number of the ticket, the number of the European standard. And so that's really what you're looking at. This is for your aggregates for bitumen. So every standard you look at, you will see that. And that's just an example of a docket. And if you don't get that, then you really don't have any comeback. And you have your CE marking and your product description there. That's an SR21 compliant product. And your dates, your haul, your delivery, etc. So market surveillance officers, when they're going out on site, testing and sampling. Okay, we're going to sample our aggregates. We need clear sample bags, and they can be provided by the testing laboratory on request. The aim is for 15 to 20 kilograms of aggregate to ensure the sufficient amount. Manual handling course would be important that you would have that done because those samples are heavy. If you're looking at blocks, you're looking at 13 blocks for a full suite of tests. So you have to get a sample of 13 blocks from each manufacturer. So reduced number depending on then the testing required, and ensure like you know what you want before you arrive. So that's just a sample of testing that the office has done. These are a list of the testing that may be prescribed to be done. So you need to tick and see what's on the declaration of performance and see what tests you need to have done that and check those against what's declared on the declaration of performance. So that's a checklist that we will be sending out. Very important thing when you're going out to look at aggregates, make sure that when you're checking them, segregation and labelling of aggregates is very important. They can't be getting mixed up in the manufacturer's yard. The results of factory production control shall be recorded, including sampling locations, dates and times, and product tested with other relevant information, example, weather conditions. So you need to check that the sampling, when you're taking your samples, that the segregation, there's nothing being mixed up, everything is labelled properly, everything is as it says it is on the tin. And there's your grading for SR17. Testing and sampling, just chain of custody is very important. You'll need a shovel with you, assistance from a colleague, samples, have your safe pass done, your cable ties, chain of custody forms, and that's just National Building Control Office getting some samples. Permanent markers for bags. Moisture content at the time of testing is relevant for sump samples, so you need to check which samples is relevant for testing. Again, then you'll have your list then and put that into the bag with your list to see what are you getting tested, which essential characteristic are you getting tested. That's just segregation, labeling, done quite well. You know exactly what you're looking at, where you're looking at it, and testing. Reporting then is your final phase, your conclusion, and that report is in the annex. So you have your sampling, your declaration performance checked, your CE markings checked, your labeling checked, your factory production control checked, your assessment verification, constancy performance checks done. You'll have all their checklists in the guidelines. This reports then, we must report our findings to our single liaison office, which is the CCPC, and that's via the National Market Surveillance Office. And we have the reporting template. This is just an example of the ICSSM, and you see Ireland there has all its recorded its inspections in the ICSM, and all of other European countries, they add their records to the same system, so that a person in Spain could actually look at what Ireland is doing. If they're doing aggregates, Ireland can look at Spain or France, and so it's the union, free movement of products, and that's the reporting. So for our purpose of market surveillance authorities in this country, we have our national market surveillance strategy, and we have our reporting system, which we report, and that's on our website. We will actually add those to our website each month. So we look at the total number of construction related complaints, the formal complaints, the reactive inspections, the on-site self-initiated inspections, desktop inspections, tests performed in laboratories, the findings, the number of requests for information from economic operators, the number of prosecutions, the number of corrective actions, all of that's recorded. And member states shall communicate their national market surveillance strategy to the Commission and other member states through the information communication system in each member state. So that's what I was showing you there, is the information communication system. So that's the important thing. It's a European-wide initiative for the safe movement of construction products. And this is the work that the office, in conjunction with the 31 market surveillance authorities, has carried out since we set up. We have 195 on-site market surveillance inspections carried out for aggregates, over 500 laboratory testing performed on samples, 9 corrective actions, 142 requests for information. And that's just, and all the market surveillance authorities will have gotten this in a circular. The supporting role of the National Market Surveillance Office, it's the leading out and rolling out, the coordinating the National Market Surveillance Strategy in conjunction with local authorities, the national competent authorities and other technical expertise, investigating complaints, liaising with the Department of Housing, Customs, the European Union. And so it's a coordinating role that the office takes, a support role, an information role, a training role. And this is one of our first training webinars on market surveillance. I've put this, our new information, where you can get more information on market surveillance on our website. And that's really the an overview of the National Market Surveillance Strategy. And if there's any questions in the questions and answer box, we can take them.